joke from very early on in the TechTO health days, before we became a part of the TechTO family. I'm really excited to be here with Naheed, who's actually been at several of our TechTO health events in the past. I was just checking there, Naheed, and the first time I believe was in 2017 that you presented.
Yeah, that's right. May of 2017.
Good memory. And someone else from Cyclica joined us in April of this year to share their insights in terms of what Cyclica is doing. Let's just start off with a brief explanation about what you do. You also have a very complicated problem that you're solving. So if you could explain it in a few simple words, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, thank you guys so much for the invitation to come back and speak. Cyclica is a big supporter of the previous iteration and having an opportunity to speak there. And now Tech Toronto, love how you guys have brought the ecosystem together, not just in Toronto and Ontario, but clearly nationally and internationally as well. So Cyclica is proudly a Toronto-based company, though we do have offices in Boston and the UK, and we are growing globally. Currently about 40 employees, and when I spoke in May of 2017, approximately 15, 16 at that time. And so we've continued to grow steadily, but with our head before our feet. We are in the exciting space of AI for drug discovery, a big growing space with over 200 companies actively innovating and applying their technologies with the overall goal and objective of more rapidly designing medicines for patients. Now, Cyclica would be considered one of the formative companies in the space, going back to 2013, 14, when we were founded back here in Toronto. And if I just take a quick step back and provide you a patient journey very quickly, and then I'll get into kind of like what we do, and then I'd love to hear some questions regarding our fundraise that we just recently announced. So all of us on this call, all of us listening, are patients at some point in time, and we've gone down the patient journey. Now, the way in which medicines have been designed traditionally has been to understand a disease, understand the component of that disease that is malfunctioning, and to design a drug for that specific biological component. And you can think of a drug as a key and a target in the body that is linked to the disease as a lock. And your goal is to design a key for a specific lock. Now, we as patients know that in reality, drugs do more than just one thing. When they enter the system, when they enter the body, they're interacting with dozens to hundreds of keys or dozens to hundreds of locks. And some of those are undesirable and can lead to side effects or toxicity. And so where every other company in our space is innovated, both experimentally, computationally, and now with AI, in trying to find the best key for one lock, we flipped the problem on its head and we said, let's take a panoramic view of the city of Toronto full of locks, and let's find which doors that key is opening up. And that term is called, polypharmacology, the notion that a drug does more than just one thing. And we've brought a innovative AI technology to the market that has sparked a wave of innovation, not only with multinational pharma companies, but what we're most excited about and what we raised our Series B on is kind of decentralizing the discovery of medicines by sparking that innovation with early stage biotech companies here in Toronto, Canada, and globally.
Fantastic. Thank you. I love the analogy.
Thanks.
So you mentioned that you just announced your round in June 24th, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks.
Series B, 23 million, correct?
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And you've raised before COVID as well. Previously, you were actually closing that financing round last time you were at HealthTO. That's
right. Good memory. So we've raised a total of about $38 million to date now over the past 7 years. And it hasn't, if you remember back in that presentation, one of my first slides was, when entrepreneurs think about time and value, they think, just wait it out, put more effort, and the value will increase. No, there's a big mess in the beginning, and previous speakers have talked about just going through that. And around 2016, 2017, we went through that, and we've gone From an investment standpoint, we've done the friends, family, we've gone through the angel networks. We've raised capital from early stage venture capital funds to get through that Death Valley, and all aligned with our overall scientific and commercial vision as a company. And that, supported by government grants and non-dilutive financing, was about $14.5 million. We built a team of about 35 people. We opened up our Series B in November 2018 with a compelling story that looked at the next, not just couple years, but the next 5-10 years, and how we would usher in kind of a new wave of innovation for the discovery of medicines. And so we were very fortunate, given what happened in February, March, to have closed with some phenomenal investors and to carry forward our vision.
And so how was your experience raising during COVID?
Yeah, raising money at any point, COVID or no COVID, is not that much fun, right? Like it's fun in a different way, but it's very stressful. It's highly introspective. You know, going through fundraising, more than anything, with money being the output, what you gain from that is a clear understanding of the strengths and the weaknesses of a company if you do it the right way, and you're open and honest about the conversation. If I go back to November, early November, when we opened up our confidential data room, I can back into that decision to open up then for about 12 months, because fundraising is a lifelong journey. You know, June 24th closed. We had a leadership meeting on Thursday morning at 9:30. The questions immediately out of the gate was, so Naheed, when Series C investment starting? I said, it's starting right now, because it really doesn't stop. And so when we opened up, it was a decision that was made after about 12 months of continuous effort and relationship building. And we opened up at that time for two reasons. Number one, the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference was in early January in San Francisco, which is the largest healthcare conference globally. And number two, pundits were predicting that for other reasons, there's going to be an economic crunch. Nobody predicted COVID, but they were predicting that there was going to be a slowdown. And so we elected to open up in November, and you know, you got it. You have to get lucky. You have to seek out luck, and we were lucky in that timing.
That's fantastic. And so do you have any advice for founders and startups who are looking to raise now or in the next year?
Yeah, so before giving advice, I just want to share one story. So, you know, some people may remember, some people for self-preservation may have forgotten or just choose not to remember that March 23rd was the bottom of the market. You know, that was the lowest point in the COVID environment where the market bottomed out. We had just received term sheets. That weekend, on that Friday, when the market was dipping, I didn't sleep for 72 hours. I woke up on Monday, on March 23rd, and our lead investor, we had a call at 10:30 a.m. And the first thing I essentially said was, hey, good morning. Tell me, are you guys pulling the plug or not? Because if you do, I empathize with it, but I just need to know, because the whole world had turned upside down. And the one thing that shook me in such a positive way was not only did they say, Naheed, we got you and we have Cyclica, it was their energy and their momentum. And they empathized with us and the challenges that we were likely facing operationally. They came behind and said, we're 100% behind you. We're not leaving this conversation. Nothing can happen for us to pull the plug on the Cyclica investment. And then we were able to bring in that syndicate some phenomenal investors. So my one piece of advice would be to have tenacity. And to have conviction to your story and the relationship that you have with the other side. It's not across a table, it's side by side. And those people are making an investment in a bet in the company, but they're also making an investment in the conviction that you have, that as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a founder, that you can get through this, that this is a short blip. So if we look at the data right now, Startup Health, a healthcare accelerator incubator out of New York, we've been a member of since 2014, puts out a quarterly report, $9.8 billion of investment in health innovation for half year 2020, compared to about $7.7 billion half year 2019. 377 deals, that was more than all of 2019 in health innovation. And while they showed a decrease in investment from January 2020 of about $2.2 billion to the base, which was in April of $1.1 billion, we're seeing a pickup. There's a lot of money out there. People are looking for good investments. And I think us as Canadians have an opportunity not only to pique the interest of Canadian life science VCs, but honestly to magnetize global capital to Canada. And we should be doing this. We should be telling that story, whether it be US, Europe, Asia, to start magnetizing that level of capital to the innovation that we have here. That will catalyze our innovation to then be able to commercialize globally.
That's great. And I think there's a few things here that I'd just like to touch on. One is the relationship with your investors, because that is incredible that they, it speaks highly to the relationship that you have with them.
Definitely.
So can you speak a little bit about how you went about building those relationships and any tips that you have?
Definitely. I've known Drive Capital and Molly Benektapour, who is the partner at Drive, who's now on our board, and Chris Olson, known them for about 2 years. And initially it was all just building relationships, spreading our tentacles, getting to know one another without really an ask. Because when we first met, we weren't raising money. And in November 2018, as stuff started to kind of promulgate that we had opened up a round of financing, they reached out to us. Hey, let's meet at JP Morgan. Great. It was one of the best meetings that we had. And from January 12th to February 28th, 25th, 26th, 27th timeframe, when we got that lead term sheet, it was just a matter of not who are we as people. They've gotten to know us. They were on our email lists. We kept in touch. It was now a matter of, okay, who's the team and where are you guys going? How have you grown and where are you going as a company? And so for, the advice that I'd provide, seed, Series A, Series B, and the advice that's now being presented to me for the next round is build those relationships now, get their views inculcated into how you're thinking about your strategy, so that when you go back to them, there's that active listening, there's that incorporation of ideas, and you can marry yourself more closely to the ideology and the philosophy of a prospective investor. That's not to say you need to pander to anybody, but investors sit at the front edge of looking at what's going on in the industry and including them into your thinking, I think is very important. And that's what we do constantly.
And so what's next besides Series C? What's next for Cyclica?
Yeah, so if you think about the drug discovery paradigm, there are really two ways in which companies tend to commercialize technology. A vast majority of companies will emphasize the innovation on the science, and that is incredibly important. That's the stake, right? That's the fundamental that has to be there. Then they go and tell stories. Some companies start to tell too many stories early on without the fundamentals, too much sizzle, not enough steak. For us, we've invested very heavily in the science, rigorously validated our platform, and applied it in a number of contexts. It hasn't always worked. There's no silver bullet to drug discovery, but much more often than not, we're seeing real value gained by using our platform. The question then became, how do we think about commercial innovation? And if drug discovery is on a downward trajectory of productivity, $2.6 billion, 12 years to bring a drug to the market, can new technologies, including AI, reverse that trend? It's not just going to happen in the classical paradigm. So for us, it goes back to the opening remarks that I had, that I shared, was decentralizing the discovery of medicines. So instead of focusing on the top 50 pharma companies who can afford our technologies and pay us upfront revenue, we've thought about value differently, and we've started to create companies. We've created close to over a couple dozen companies. We have over 50 programs now in active development that we own meaningful ownership in. If you look at the Series B announcement, we announced 30 programs. We've closed a number of key deals over the past few weeks. The goal here is, what's the next decade look like? How do we think about scale, not scientifically, but on the back of really good science commercially? And so our focus is going to be 1,000 programs over the next decade, a few hundred programs over the next few years. And by doing that, we can take a more broad perspective to ensure that all patients who suffer from disease have access to technology to design better medicines, so that they're not left waiting. And that's what's really on our mind.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Naheed, for joining us. And I look forward to having you again at TechTO Health.
Thank you.
Thank you.